Let me ask you something that might shake you. Why is the United States, the so-called champion of democracy, openly backing a nation that harbored Osama bin Laden, fuels terror networks, and has a collapsing economy over the world's largest democracy, India? You feel that fire rising in your chest? Good, because this isn't about patriotism. It's about cold, calculated global strategy, and if you think it's just bad diplomacy, think again. In this video, I'm not just going to tell you why America is supporting Pakistan. I'm going to expose how India is playing checkers on a chessboard, why the U.S. likes it that way, and how this game can be flipped if India wakes up. Stay with me till the end, because what's coming will change how you see international politics forever. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. America doesn't have friends, it has interests. If you're still under the illusion that countries support each other out of loyalty, shared values, or mutual admiration, it's time to wake up. The United States, like every other global power, operates based on one thing: strategic advantage. And right now, Pakistan offers that advantage more than India does in certain areas. Now, before you raise your voice or roll your eyes, hear this. This isn't about who's right or wrong. It's not about who's moral, who's growing faster, who has the better democracy, or even who's more aligned with Western values. It's about what each country can do for the U.S. agenda. Today, right now, in real time. So why is America cozying up to Pakistan? Let's get one thing straight. It's not because they like Pakistan more than India. They don't. It's because they are intuitively prone to do, and they get but Pakistan has made itself useful in specific ways that appeal to America's foreign policy goals, especially in regions where India refuses to play ball. Think about it. Despite all its problems, terrorism, political instability, a broken economy, Pakistan is geographically located in the heart of one of the world's most volatile, yet strategic regions. It borders Iran, Afghanistan, and is close to China. That gives the U.S. critical access points for surveillance, military logistics, intelligence operations, and more. Even during the war on terror, Pakistan played both sides, sheltering extremists while acting as an ally. The U.S. knew it, but they kept the partnership going. Why? Because Pakistan offered proximity and plausible deniability. Meanwhile, what is India doing? India is growing. It's a rising global power, a tech giant, and a key voice in the global south. But here's the catch. India is not controllable. It doesn't fall in line. It buys oil from Russia. It won't condemn countries just because the West says so. It doesn't send troops when NATO asks. In short, India is independent. That sounds great, right? Yes, unless you're a country like the United States, which prefers compliant allies over proud equals. So when India flexes its muscles, asserts its autonomy, and refuses to play second fiddle, Washington starts to hedge its bets. It quietly engages with countries that will say yes without asking too many questions. And that's where Pakistan steps in. Now, does that mean America will abandon India entirely? No, not even close. India is far too important, economically, militarily, and technologically, for the U.S. to ignore. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The support won't be consistent. The praise won't be unconditional. The moment India's choices diverge from American interests, you'll see the tone shift. Because again, this isn't friendship. It's transactional. Always has been. If India wants consistent support, it has to stop appealing to emotion. We're the world's largest democracy. We share common values. We're peaceful, etc. None of that matters unless it aligns with America's current goals. Global politics is not a family dinner. It's not about respect or good behavior. It's a power game, and every player is in it for themselves. So the next time you hear about the U.S. approving arms sales to Pakistan or restoring aid packages or offering military support, don't be shocked. Ask yourself one question. What does Pakistan offer that India currently doesn't? And better yet, what does India need to start doing to shift that balance? Because until India learns to play by the same ruthless rules the big powers use, it will keep getting outmaneuvered. Not for lack of strength, but for lack of strategic aggression. This is not about changing who we are. It's about realizing who they are. And when you see it clearly, the game changes forever. Let's talk geography. Because wars aren't just won with weapons. They're won with location. When you look at a world map, what do you see? Countries, borders, flags, maybe even culture. But do you know what the Pentagon sees? Access points, launch pads, gateways, choke points. And from that perspective, Pakistan is a gold mine. See, Pakistan's biggest strength isn't its economy. It's not its political stability. And it's definitely not its track record on terrorism. What makes Pakistan valuable to the United States is this. It sits at the intersection of U.S. strategic interests, bordering Afghanistan, Iran, and China. That triangle alone makes it worth watching, worth investing in, worth tolerating. Now, here's the cold hard truth. If your country lets the U.S. park troops nearby, use your airspace for drones, set up listening posts, or support proxy operations, you become an instant ally. Even if everything else about you is falling apart. This is exactly why America has kept returning to Pakistan, even after publicly criticizing it. Remember when Osama bin Laden was found living comfortably in Abbottabad, just a stone's throw away from a major Pakistani military base? The U.S. was furious, but not furious enough to walk away. Why? Because in military operations, proximity beats principles. Let's break it down. When the U.S. needed access to Afghanistan after 9/11, Pakistan opened its airspace. It allowed NATO supply routes. It gave access to roads, ports, and intelligence infrastructure, not because it loved America, but because it knew how to make itself useful. Even now, as tensions rise with China and Iran, the U.S. can't afford to have blind spots in this volatile region. Pakistan gives them eyes and ears on the ground, and that is priceless. So where does India stand in this scenario? Geographically, India is not positioned in the same tactical corridor. Yes, it borders China, and that's crucial. But India is not willing to become a launch pad for American military operations. And that's a big deal. India values its sovereignty. It doesn't want foreign troops on its soil. It doesn't hand out airspace access like coupons. It's cautious, deliberate, and non-iron-lined by principle. And while that earns respect, it doesn't necessarily earn strategic favoritism. So again, what does the U.S. choose? It picks flexibility over formality. It picks a Pakistan that says, we'll cooperate over an India that says, we'll decide on our own terms. No, but from a military logistics point of view, when you need a place to land a plane, move equipment, run surveillance, or stage a counter-op it, Pakistan gets picked because it simply makes the U.S. job easier. That's not diplomacy, that's logistics. And here's where things get even more real. If India wants to protect its position as a top U.S. partner, it needs to start thinking not just about trade and tech, but about tactical, not just what we offer on paper, but what we offer on the ground. Because right now, Pakistan is playing the location game and playing it well. And guess what? The U.S. isn't going to stop using that advantage. Because that's how global power works. It's opportunistic, it's fast, it's all about who can deliver under pressure. So the next time someone says, why is the U.S. still supporting Pakistan? They mean, Why does the U.S. still supporting that Pakistan? You can answer it in one line, because when it comes to military logistics, Pakistan opens the door and India guards the gate. That might sting, but it's a reality check India needs if it wants to shift the narrative. India has everything it needs to lead: talent, power, economy, and vision. But to outplay old power structures, it must start thinking in their language. Leverage, geography, access. Once that mindset shifts, the game changes. Let's stop pretending. This isn't about India. This isn't even really about Pakistan. It's about China. Everything the United States is doing in Asia, every move, every alliance, every dollar spent is part of one giant, high-stakes chess match against its biggest rival, China. Now, here's the truth most people don't want to hear. When America supports Pakistan, it's not promoting terrorism. It's containing China. Let that sink in. See, the U.S. isn't dumb. They know what Pakistan has done. They've read the same intelligence reports. They've seen the double games. But they also know this. Pakistan shares a direct border with China's most sensitive region, Xinjiang. It's a pressure point. And Washington wants its thumb on it. That's why the U.S. doesn't cut Pakistan off completely, even when it probably should. Because in this global power struggle, having access to China's weak spots is worth a few moral compromises. So what does that mean for India? India is stuck in a weird spot. On the one hand, it's the only Asian power strong enough to challenge China, militarily, economically, and ideologically. But on the other hand, India is not willing to become a puppet in the U.S.-China rivalry. It's not blindly choosing sides. India buys Russian oil. It partners with Iran. It pushes for multipolarity. It refuses to take marching orders from Washington. And while that independence is admirable, it also makes the U.S. nervous. Because guess who's not unpredictable? Pakistan. Pakistan will play the game. It will take the aid. It will nod in meetings. It will host American envoys and say all the right things as long as the money and support keep flowing. In return, the U.S. gets something it desperately wants: regional leverage against China. Let me break this down even further. China has invested billions into Pakistan through the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, a key piece of its massive Belt and Road Initiative. That corridor cuts through sensitive territory in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and connects China to the Arabian Sea through Gwadar Port to the U.S. That's a red flag the size of a continent. And what's the best way to poke at that plan? Stay close to Pakistan. Keep tabs. Keep options. Because if you lose Pakistan entirely to China, you also lose a critical foothold in the region. It's not about trusting Pakistan. It's about keeping it in play. So the next time you see America backing Islamabad with funding, weapons, or diplomatic support, remember, it's not because they forgot about India, but because they forgot the foothold in Indian weapons support with funding, weapons. Remember, it's not because they forgot about India. It's because they're terrified of China, and Pakistan is the pawn they're using to stay on the board. Here's where things get uncomfortable. India is the better partner in almost every measurable way. But the U.S. doesn't want a partner right now. It wants a tool. And Pakistan, despite its chaos, is playing that role. India plays long-term. It plays honest. It plays principled. And that's exactly why it gets bypassed in moments when America wants speed, access, and compliance. But here's the twist, and it's a big one. If India learns to leverage the China fear better, it can flip the entire board. The U.S. needs help checking China's influence in the Indo-Pacific. That's India's golden ticket. India controls sea lanes, has military credibility, tech capacity, and a global voice. If it starts packaging that as leverage and not just values, it can reframe the whole narrative. Because guess what scares Washington more than terrorism in Pakistan, a Chinese naval base in the Indian Ocean? Chinese influence stretching from Africa to Southeast Asia. A Chinese-led world order. If India can position itself as the essential firewall between China and the rest of the world, not just a proud democracy, but a geostrategic necessity, then Washington won't just support India, it'll depend on it. That's the game, and now you see it clearly. Let's get one thing straight. India is not a follower. It doesn't bend to pressure. It doesn't jump at commands. It doesn't shift policies to impress Washington, Moscow, or Beijing. And while that earns respect globally, it's also exactly why the U.S. doesn't fully trust India. Sounds unfair? Maybe. But this is how global power works. Independence is admired, but rarely rewarded. Obedience is valued more than principle. Let's talk facts. India has made it crystal clear in recent years it will not take sides in the West's conflicts. It will not cut ties with Russia just because America and Europe say so. It will continue to buy discounted oil from Moscow, engage diplomatically with Iran, and chart its own path. And in doing so, India is challenging the Western script. Now, don't misunderstand this. India's independent stance isn't wrong. In fact, it's courageous, it's visionary, it reflects a mature, self-reliant power. But in the real world, in Washington, D.C. and NATO strategy rooms, this kind of independence makes you unreliable. You know what the U.S. hates more than an enemy? An ally it can't control. So when India says, we'll decide for ourselves, America hears, we might say no when you need us most. And that makes them nervous. Let's rewind a bit. When the Russia-Ukraine war broke out, the entire Western bloc expected India to jump on board the sanctions train. Instead, India did the opposite. It ramped up oil purchases, negotiated trade in rupees and rubles, and doubled down on military hardware agreements with Moscow. To Washington, this wasn't just unexpected, it was unacceptable. Alignment, dependability under pressure. And India, with its non-aligned legacy and multi-directional diplomacy, doesn't fit neatly into that box. Now, contrast that with Pakistan. Yes, it's messy. Yes, it's unstable. Yes, it often plays both sides. But when the U.S. dials the phone and says, we need access, Pakistan says yes. When America needs support in the UN or boots near a flashpoint, Pakistan negotiates. They play the game. India questions the game. And here's where the backlash begins. India's independent foreign policy, while bold, has created discomfort among U.S. policymakers. It's seen as too neutral, too cautious, and at times even too ambitious for a partner who won't follow Western lines. So what happens? America begins to hedge its bets. It pulls Pakistan closer, even if it doesn't fully trust Islamabad, because at least Pakistan is more pliable. And the message becomes clear. Be useful, not just principled. This isn't about ideology, it's about leverage. India's strength, its independence, is ironically what keeps it at arm's length. Because in moments of geopolitical urgency, the U.S. wants action, not discussion. It wants alignment, not autonomy. But here's the wake-up call for India. Being independent is not enough. You have to be indispensable. That means proving to the U.S. and the world that India isn't just doing its own thing, but that its independent choices actually stabilize the global order. That refusing to pick sides isn't passive, it's powerful. That India's stance brings balance, not confusion. The challenge is not to abandon independence, but to package it strategically, because the world respects power, but it responds to influence. Right now, India is seen as a sovereign power with a backbone, but not always as a go-to partner in a crisis. That perception needs to change, and India has the tools to do it: economic clout, military credibility, technological leadership, cultural diplomacy, a booming youthful population with global vision. But all of that must translate into one clear message. We may not obey, but we deliver. We may not follow, but we lead. Once that narrative is crystal clear, the U.S. will have no choice but to treat India not as an alternative, not as a fallback, but as the first call. Until then, Pakistan, with all its flaws, remains the more convenient choice, not the better one, just the easier one. And in geopolitics, convenience often wins. Let's stop pretending foreign policy is about peace, because it's not. It's a business. A brutal, billion-dollar business built on weapons, wars, and influence. And guess what the U.S. is really selling when it talks about strategic partnerships? Weapons, missiles, jets, defense systems, surveillance tech. America is the world's top arms exporter. So when you hear about aid, military cooperation, or security dialogue, translate that into what it actually means: contracts, profits. Now here's where Pakistan enters the picture. Again, despite its unstable economy, political chaos, and reputation for sheltering terror groups, Pakistan has never stopped buying arms. Why? Because arms deals aren't about affordability. They're about leverage, about creating long-term dependencies, about ensuring that when a country buys your weapons, it also buys your agenda. And that's what Pakistan has mastered. Let's break it down. Over the decades, Pakistan has been a consistent buyer of American military equipment, from F-16 fighter jets to precision-guided munitions. Even when relations were tense, arms sales continued, sometimes quietly, sometimes controversially, but they continued. Why? Because defense deals lock countries together in long-term technical, operational, and strategic cooperation. If the U.S. sells you jets, guess what happens next? You need American parts to maintain them. You need American training to fly them. You need American software to guide them. You need American technicians and American approval every time you upgrade, repair, or deploy them. It's a golden leash. Now let's look at India. India, too, buys arms, a lot of them. In fact, it's one of the world's top arms importers. But here's the twist. India doesn't buy exclusively from the U.S. India buys from Russia, from France, from Israel, from domestic manufacturers. It is actively building towards self-reliance under its Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat defense initiatives. That's a great move for sovereignty, but not great for U.S. defense contractors. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If you're not feeding the American arms economy, you're not really in their inner circle. India may be a strategic partner, but Pakistan is a repeat customer. It's like this. India walks into a dealership and says, we'll look around, maybe we'll build our own car. Pakistan walks in and says, we'll take whatever you've got and we'll be back for more. And the U.S. loves that. Because that's not just a sale. That's a long-term subscription. Let's go even deeper. Every arms deal comes with access clauses, logistics agreements, and intelligence sharing protocol. So when the U.S. sells weapons to Pakistan, it's not just selling metal. It's buying influence, placing boots on the ground, opening doors for future operations. Now let's not be naive. Does the U.S. trust Pakistan? No. But trust is not the currency in this game. Dependency is. And Pakistan is heavily dependent on U.S. military aid and equipment, which means when push comes to shove, the U.S. can pull strings, impose limits, or extract favors. India is trying to cut the strings altogether. It's building indigenous missiles, developing local tanks, working with multiple partners, diversifying its defense profile. Great for sovereignty, but bad for business, American business. And in Washington, the sound of freedom isn't always the national anthem. Sometimes It's the sound of a weapons contract being signed. So why does America still support Pakistan? In the same way that America still support Pakistan, because the arms economy needs customers. And the defense establishment needs relevance. And when a country keeps coming back for jets, bombs, upgrades, and aid, no matter how complicated it is, you don't cut it off. You keep the deal going. That's not loyalty. That's logistics. That's not strategy. And unless India finds a way to align its independence with American profit, it will keep losing ground, not because it lacks power, but because it refuses to play the arms game on U.S. terms. Until then, Pakistan remains the easier client, not the better partner, just the better buyer. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the thing that everyone sees, but no one wants to say out loud. America's foreign policy is built on double standards. Now, before you roll your eyes and say that's just politics, let me tell you something deeper. This isn't just hypocrisy. It's realpolitik, the brutal, calculated game of power where morality takes a back seat and strategic interests drive the car. Let me explain. America claims to stand for democracy, human rights, and justice. It promotes freedom, equality, and anti-terrorism. That's the public narrative. But in private, in strategy rooms, war cabinets, and intelligence briefings, the question is never who is right. It's who helps us win, who gives us leverage, who can we use right now. And that's why Pakistan, despite harboring extremists, despite political chaos, despite working both sides of the terrorism fence, keeps getting American attention, funding, and support. It's not about ethics. It's about usefulness. Let's rewind to history. Pakistan helped fund and arm the Taliban during the Soviet-Afghan War, with America's full support. Then, years later, America had to invade Afghanistan to clean up that mess, while still working with Pakistan. Osama bin Laden was found in Abbottabad, Pakistan, just down the road from a major military academy. Did America cut ties after that? No, because even betrayal has a price, and sometimes the price of walking away is too high. This is realpolitik. And India, the world's largest democracy, a growing economic superpower, a nation that upholds law and order in one of the world's most dangerous regions, watches this and says, why are we not being treated better? Why is the U.S. not standing by us when Pakistan plays double games? Where's the reward for doing things the right way? And here's the painful answer. Because doing the right thing doesn't always pay off in geopolitics. Let's say that again. In international politics, being moral is admirable, but being useful is profitable. America doesn't always support the country with the cleanest record. It supports the one that helps it win, whether that's in the Middle East, Central Asia, or now in the rising tension with China. And right now, Pakistan, for all its problems, is a strategic lever. It can influence the Taliban. It can keep an eye on Iran. It borders Xinjiang, China's most sensitive province. It allows military access when needed. And it still has channels inside regions that America can't reach directly. Meanwhile, India, proud, independent, democratic India, chooses not to be a pawn, and the U.S., despite calling India its strategic partner, still hesitates to go all in. Because realpolitik punishes independence and rewards flexibility. That's why America can lecture India about human rights, but look the other way when Saudi Arabia, Egypt, or Pakistan violate them. That's why it can preach democracy while arming regimes that suppress it. That's why it can call for peace while selling billions in weapons that fuel endless wars. This is not about who's good or bad. This is about who fits into the current strategy. India's problem, it's leverage. It's playing a long ethical game in a short-term ruthless world. Now, should India abandon its principles? Absolutely not. But it must learn to combine ethics with influence. It must build alliances not just based on shared values, but shared interests. It must show the world, especially the West, that choosing India is not just morally right, but strategically necessary. Because right now, America is operating on a very simple formula. If you help us get what we want today, we'll overlook what you did yesterday. That's how Pakistan stays in the picture. That's how double standards are justified. That's how realpolitik works. And unless India finds a way to beat that logic with power, presence, and pressure, it will keep getting the respect of the world, but not the priority. And in this game, respect without priority is just a polite insult.